Some startup tips: always use disposable gloves. Even though dye ink is meant to be non-toxic, if you get it on your hands it seems to stay there for a few days and it can get quite messy. Any ink is very invasive. If you drop it on the floor, make sure you've got the table covered in newspaper. Get some handy towels and use a cotton bud for cleaning the print cartridges when you've finished doing them. Always make sure before you start you have a sink full of fresh water. Top the sink pretty well right up, because once you've emptied the syringes you'll need to clean them. Part of the cleaning process, once you've flushed all of the ink out with water, for example, you suck the water up and squeeze the water out, and that gets the coloration out. Do not leave this part in, because ink coats this area as well, and next time you go and use it, if you use it with a different colour, you'll know what the problem is going to be. So give that rubber part a wash as well. What I'm going to do here is to replace some generic black ink in this cartridge, because it's got the wrong viscosity, and this is typified by you have to keep cleaning the print head all the time. It means that the ink doesn't actually stay in the feeder line for the brother printer, so I'm replacing it with our ink, which has got much better viscosity. So once you just move that top piece forward, as I've just done, then point the cartridge downhill like that, remove it, and the springs should stay in place, but this one didn't. So there's a couple of little areas there where the springs sit on. It's not, you don't have to do it that way, but it just makes it easier when you reassemble it. Just sit it like that. And the next step is to put on this here, which is a pressure relief valve, is to put a little bit of absorbent paper with a rubber band around, which lets the cartridge breathe as you are extracting or injecting the ink into it. Right, so here's the piece of paper, which is just normal toweling paper. You might find your own method is better, but I put a rubber band around it which pushes the pressure release valve in, and then you can inject ink or remove ink, as I'm going to be doing removing ink at this present point in time. Without the pressure release valve, the syringe can't work properly. So here we go, I'll just push that in here. Now there was a bit of pressure in there already, so I've just got to suck there. Now the syringe won't suck or inject unless you just put a little bit of an angle on it, like so. If I push it straight, it's because the pressure relief valve on the bottom needs to be moved a little bit. You'll find as you do it that there is a resistance unless you keep the pressure on the valve, and also you have to give the pressure release valve sometimes a little bit of a squeeze, so it's almost a two-handed process. Just take it slowly and carefully and everything works out fine. Right, when you've got your new bottle of ink, this is our black ink, just make a small hole in the centre. Don't try and rip the paper off, because you'll end up with a mess. Just put a small hole in the centre and then increase the size of it by pressing down like that. And we've got our hole there now. Now I've just got to be careful here that I don't spill any ink anywhere. I can just insert this back over here. That's all good. So the reason for doing it that way is if you try and take the tin foil off, you may end up dropping tiny fragments into the ink, which will cause an eventual future nozzle blockage. Okay, so what you do when you're filling it up is to just get the window fairly carefully up to the top. If the paper on the top starts discolouring, this absorbent paper, then stop immediately. So just push the ink nozzle into there and gently squeeze. The ink will start going in, and then just carefully remove that, keeping an eye on the level. You don't want to overfill, never overfill. It doesn't matter if it's better to be short than too much. That's enough for that filling. Now I go on with the cotton bud. Give this a clean. Cleanliness is the big deal. You don't want ink over your printer and the internals. Take that off. Just give it another, see a little bit of ink came out on there. Give it another press just to make sure everything's all good. Now the ink window's showing fairly full. It doesn't matter if it's not exactly full or not. As I say, try and keep it not too full. And cover that up, stop any spillage. So that is fair enough there. And the good thing about having the cartridge without this plastic piece on it, you can fill it with it on, but if there's any leakage inside, when you've got the cover on, it's not visible. So what we're doing here is really the best method. Now when we reassemble, the part with the biggest aperture goes on this is the bottom, that's the top, and you just put the springs into their respective holes, push the brother cartridge closed, check that it's locked, another quick clean. Sometimes you have to clean the top as well, but imagine if you made a spillage and you had this part here on, the ink could be inside here and it will spill out into the printer, which of course is not what you want.